over there. Send the word over there. That the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming. The drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer. Send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there, over there, over there. Send the word over.
Hey everybody, this is Joshua Littrell. Thank you so much for joining us here today on the Honor Across Arms podcast. I am extremely honored and proud to have Josh McCarty as our guest today. Josh, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, sir. Very well. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule and being an esteemed guest here on the Honor Across Arms podcast. Josh, you're a Navy veteran. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I am.
Awesome, man. Well, we're going to get into a little bit of your service, a little bit of background. But before we get started, if you don't mind, give the listeners an understanding of where you're at geographically located in the country today.
I am in Perry, Georgia. Pretty much work on Robins Air Force Base and just hanging out here and enjoying life right now.
Awesome, man. Awesome. That's so great to hear. So, we typically don't talk about timeline, but I know we're all in this COVID-19 thing that's going on right now. I hope you and your family are all safe during this COVID-19 right now. Is everybody doing okay?
Yeah, pretty much so. And I hope you all are doing fine too.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much. So, Josh, I think without any further ado, we'll get right into it. So, you're a Navy veteran, man. How many years did you serve?
I served 4.
4 years. 4 years. So,
yes, sir.
what was your in the Air Force we call it AFSC. What was your job, and what do you guys in the Navy call it?
I was a aviation structural hydraulic mechanic. Aviation structural hydraulic mechanic, and pretty much that was just our billet. We just did our job. When I first came in, I came in as an aviation structural mechanic, and then when I got in boot camp, they pretty much formed structural and hydraulic mechanics together, and that's what I became.
Wow, that's awesome, Josh. So, Josh, where are you from originally?
Perry, Georgia.
Perry, Georgia. Nice, yeah. Man, nice. So, now I know a little bit about Perry, Georgia, and there's not a whole lot of bodies of water around there. Why did you join the Navy?
My dad joined the Navy, and that was kind of the big reason that I wanted to. It kind of took me a little bit of time to kind of wrap my head around it. I didn't join right out of high school. It took me a little bit of working construction and figuring out that I wasn't cut out for college at that time. And then that just hit me. I needed to get out of it, where I was. I wasn't in Georgia at the time. I was in Texas, moved around a lot as a kid. But just that's the reason I wanted to join. Just, Dad did it, so I thought I should too.
Well, I'll tell you what, Josh, your story is so similar to so many of our brothers and sisters, and I call you a brother because you are, and our sisters who served with us as well. It comes from a family, a familial line of service, right? Do you know what your dad did when he was in the Navy?
He was a radarman.
A radarman. Man, that's pretty awesome. Yes. How long did he serve?
He did his 4 during Vietnam.
Wow.
Him and his older brother, I think they joined, I may be wrong, but I knew it was during Vietnam, but I may be wrong on the years. I think it was like 67, 68.
Wow.
And they decided to, hey, instead of getting drafted, let's pick our service. So they joined the Navy, and that's what they did.
I like to think that you and I probably would have done the same thing, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
Different time back then. But I know that you and I signed on the dotted line when we didn't have to. We were not drafted. So I'm hoping that we would have done the same thing back then. But I can't even imagine having a brother and knowing what's going on and joining up together, knowing that, hey, you're probably going to go to war. That's just, I don't think I can fathom that,
No, I can't either. I mean, actually, they joined up, and they were actually served on the same ship. Which
Did
is
they
kind of,
really?
yeah, they actually served on the same ship.
Wow. Man, that is
Um,
so neat.
it wasn't so lucky for the youngest brother that signed up. He got drafted, and he went in the Army. And
Wow.
that was another story for another time. But I mean, yeah, I mean, they saw a lot of stuff, and it was a heritage from my grandfather. He served during 39 to 45 as a Marine, and
Wow.
I just wanted to do my part. It took me a little while to actually get up the courage to do it, but I did it, and I was the only one out of all my 30 cousins that didn't serve, and I'm not faulting for it, but I just felt that it was a duty of mine.
Wow. Well, based on your history, Josh, I believe it was a duty of yours, and I think that's pretty dang awesome. You're a history buff, if I recall, and you think about just your family's lineage and the history that you mean and that has been written in the United States. Bro, you're a huge part of it, and it's continued
I
on
appreciate
since
it.
then. So you're a history buff. What do you enjoy most about history?
Well, I just really enjoy just reading about it, and I've been trying to actually find history of my family.
Okay.
I didn't really know my mom's side of the family. Grandfather, know he served too, but I'm still trying to figure out stuff, um, and just all of that. Trying to figure out what my grandfather did. Just one story that my dad always told me, because I asked him. I said, "Hey, Dad, what did Granddad actually tell you about being in the Marine in World War II?" And he said, the only thing he can remember is that the one story he told him was that they were caught in an ambush, and he jumped over a log and where the Japanese took the craps. That's the only story he's ever told.
Wow.
And I just always, it's just it's a pretty crappy story, but it's
Right.
still,
Literally, right?
yeah. But I
No
mean,
pun intended on that one.
yeah. But
Man,
I
that's
mean, I
so
just,
neat.
just kind of want to find more
You
history about my family.
serve. Oh yeah, you serve, and the little stories that we tend to tell are the ones that typically have either the funniest or craziest ass time that we've ever had, right? It's not
Yeah.
anything that was super meaningful or something that changed history. It's like, oh, this was a crazy time. Those are the stories that stick out, and it's so amazing that your grandfather's story would be something like that.
Yeah.
Have you been successful at all in finding the family's lineage or just family history with military service at all?
Trying to, but not really. My grandfather on my mom's side, he left them when he abandoned them, so it was kind of hard to find that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then my dad's side, yes and no, but he didn't really want to talk about it. I don't blame him.
Sure.
It's just
Sure.
really kind of hard to find all that stuff out, by talking with relatives and other things of that nature. Um, I do have other relatives that were in. One of my uncles that he's married into the family, but I call him an uncle because
Mhm.
he's one of the best guys I ever known. He was a Marine during Vietnam, and
Wow.
he just says he just remembers sitting over there and just hearing, just the gunfire and the bombardment that was coming over, and I don't really want to press him that much. But I mean, just hearing all that kind of stuff just kind of brings it back to me.
Well, I think if you take any solace from this, there's one thing that I learned a long time ago that I never understood until I was older. So, my great grandfather was
Hmm.
88 years old, and he was World War II. He was in 101st Airborne. I was there in D
Hmm.
Day, and Pop and I had this unique connection because I went to war in '03, and he, of all the grandkids, and I was a great grandkid. He was actually my great grandfather. Of all the great grandkids and grandkids, I was the only one that had joined the military, and then the only one that saw service. So when I came home, I'll never forget when I came home from the desert in '03. He had about a year left of his life, and I actually spent some time with him after I got back and sat down, and Pop and I sat and talked about war stories. I'd never had that conversation with him, Josh. Never in my, at that point in time, I was 23, 24 years old, had never
Hmm.
talked about war or what he had done and all this stuff. We sat down and sat for hours and just talked about his time, his jumps, what it was like back then. And I told him about what it was like for me. And that had never happened, but also would never have happened had I not served and had I not gone to war. So your ability to have that communication, have that service connection with a family member, whether it's uncle, dad, granddad, whatever, that's different. That's something that very few family members get, and that's something that you and I have, that connection with our family members, that we can have that open conversation and should have that conversation with them.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I kind of regret that some of my other family, like my brother, I kind of regret that he doesn't have that open relationship with my dad, that I can actually talk to him about that,
Right.
because I think he actually needs to know it too. But I just feel that, my dad can open up to me about that kind of stuff, but he can't really open up to my older brother because he didn't
Right.
actually serve.
Right.
But I kind of feel bad for my older brother because he didn't do anything wrong,
No.
not doing what what we did, but I just felt that it was a obligation that I had to do. Plus, it was actually getting me out of trouble,
Yeah.
going to the military because I wasn't the greatest kid in the world. So it actually did a great service to me getting out of what I was getting into. So.
Well, I think a lot of us end up doing a whole lot of growing up when we get in the military.
Mhm.
We oftentimes need that, a little bit of structure, a little bit of discipline, some of the things that maybe we're missing or we don't have a good grasp on when we're younger. When we get in the military, we get that. And then the lineage side of it too. You almost see generationally families serving in the military and making careers out of it a lot of times too, where you may have three, four, five, six generations that have done nothing but serve in the military. We've never made a whole lot of money, never become rich, but dad blame it, we're the ones that are carrying this country on our backs, and we will continue to do that, and that's who we are.
Yeah, very true. I mean, and me personally, I don't think money has a lot to do with it. I think you can be happy with a little bit of money just to make yourself, secure and stuff like that. You don't have to be rich to be happy. So, and I think a lot of the service members, they think that too.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that at all. I couldn't agree more. So, Josh, let's talk about this Navy service. So, were you on a boat, a submarine? What was life like for you?
Uh, well, I joined in July of 2001. I was in boot camp during 9/11,
Oh,
and then
wow.
yeah, that was in my fifth week of boot camp, and they all brought us in, and we were all thought we were in trouble. It's kind of like
Right.
what's going on here? And they sat us down, brought in an old school TV, and that's one of the things that I actually do remember great about my Navy service, is because
Sure.
even even during boot camp, when your drill instructor is supposed to be hard, and they were just compassionate. They asked everybody there, "Do you have any family members? Please stand
Wow.
up. You have, we're going to give you a week. If you need more, please let us know. You're going home." That kind of stuff. I mean,
Wow.
it's not, the Navy. I mean, not just the Navy, but all military. It's not as hard as everybody thinks it is. I mean, there's still
Right.
compassion. There's still everything that's there, but I mean, they still want to mold you into something.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So, what was that like? Did you guys Did you guys end up doing a longer basic training, or was it the typical same amount of time? What happened for you guys during that week? Because basically the world shut down. I know that. What happened for
Oh,
y'all? What was that like?
no, if for the people who didn't leave, it was the same. The
Okay.
people who did leave probably had to do another week. I'm not sure.